Yes, we are looking at the work ahead for the incoming ministers. We have with us this morning Matthias Babasado, who is a former ADP presidential candidate, a member Institute for for National Transformation, and he's also a mechanical engineer and the managing director of Maastricht Nigeria Limited. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, okay.
And we have with us Senator Ayo Arishe, who is a former chairman House Committee on Privatization. He's also a member of the All Progressives Congress. You're welcome, Senator.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Well, gentlemen, you have seen these ministers go to their offices, not just be sworn in now. Some of them have been received with pomp and pageantry at the offices, the ones that are returning, the ones that are, the ones that returned and the ones that are new. They definitely have work ahead of them. Some of them already have immediate work to attend to. So, for instance, in the Ministry of Labor, we know that SANU and NASU are on strike or are planning to go on the mother of all strikes. They were on strike and they've called it off. We also see here now with this fraud issue on the front burner, some people are already setting an agenda for the Minister of Youth and Sports. Now, if you're looking at all of these ministers, which one of them are you focusing on and what would you like him or her to do? Let me start with you, Mr. Sado.
All right. Thank you very much and good morning, Nigerians. I think the first and the most important thing that we have as a country that has become a very big issue in Nigeria today is the issue of the economy, which has, gotten into the point of affecting virtually everything that we do, including security, including even our image internationally. If I'm going to...
So it's from that, sorry to interrupt you, you said the biggest issue is the economy. Some people will say, no, it's the other way around. It's security, which is also affecting the economy.
Okay, so here is the thing. The first thing that you look at is what's the cost of the insecurity that you have in the country. When you have over 40% of your youth unemployed, what do you expect? So what I'm looking at the causatic effect, what's causing the problem, not the problem itself. So what is causing the problem of insecurity in Nigeria? It's the rate of unemployment, and which has actually what that was caused. That is the state of the economy of the country, where you have a nation where over 80 million people are living in abject poverty, and so a whole lot of things. So if I'm going to give someone a task, it would have been the Minister of Economy. Unfortunately, we don't even have that clearly defined that this is someone with this kind of responsibility. So I think that would be my starting point, that we look at how do we get this economy kickstart such that it can quickly absorb as many as possible young people that you have on the streets of this country, and then take care, because you can't for any reason tell me that it's possible for you to secure people when they don't have anything to do.
What if some people say that's a job of the vice president because he heads the National Economic Council? He is tasked with the job of coordinating,
Fine.
it was saying,
Fantastic.
the economy. Would you agree?
Yeah, to an extent, I would agree. And my point really wouldn't be so much about whether it is the vice president or it is the Minister of Economy. My point is simple. This is where the focus should be. This is really what governance is all about. Governance is about how you improve the lives of the people that you are given responsibility to take care of. And so if that is the case, then if the person that is in charge of the economy of the country is the vice president, then let him stand up, take full responsibility, and come up with clear plans on what he needs to do and to be able to get the economy back on track and get it moving. Not, I almost mentioned that it is not so much about being able to give 10,000 naira to people on regular basis to say, you are doing trader money kind of arrangement. I'm talking about creating an economy that is productive on its own, economy that is able to add value, an economy that you have industries, factories being set up. That's something I wrote a couple of weeks ago about these one district, one factory policy in Ghana. And it's a very simple thing. what the man is saying, or the government of Ghana is saying, is we need to have a country where every district you turn in Ghana, there is a factory. And this factory is able to take in 500, 300, 200 young people to work in those places. And we have to do the same thing in Nigeria. And this is working in Ghana. As we speak, we heard about $3 billion for foreign direct investment has gone into Ghana. Many of our companies are relocating and relocated to Ghana. And then we also see that we have in our hands, we've signed what's it called, Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement, which means that goods can be produced in Ghana and being pushed into Nigeria market. Because if you look at it, what's the size of Ghana market? 28 million people compared to 200 million people. So if you look at it, you see that the focus of the Nigerian government should be getting the right kind of people to sit down behind the closed doors and design an economic system that when it's implemented within the next 6 months, maybe 8 months, we should begin to see results. And that's where I think we should start from.
Are you seeing the focus then for this administration already? Do you think that they have been able to shape very clearly what their focus is this next 4 years?
Well, I believe with the way the cabinet is structured, a number of the key areas, you have people who are running same ministries coming back. And the most important, one of the most important, you look at housing. In every country that we've had, or every instance of anything looking like recession, or unemployment and all that, you create housing, you begin to create employment from there. When people start building, when we're talking about 20 million houses, or even if it is 10 million, imagine the number of jobs that can be created from that department alone, from the housing department. Now, the Minister of Works and Housing has a whole lot of jobs to do. Ditto construction of roads. These are areas where you can actually begin to generate serious employment for people. It's not so much when you know, it's important that we have an exporting base, but it's more important that we're able to feed ourselves first. So agric is key, housing is key, and then you look at it that even the social buffer created under the vice president, talking about giving some people some money, has a significant role to play in the economy. If people don't have ability to feed themselves or have a buying power, there is no amount of policy that you're going to put on the table that will work. Even when you produce, I do have people that have the resources to buy. So lift the poor people out. And this, I believe most of these things were structured after the experience of Roosevelt in the US, when it came with very bad recession, and it came with all these policies, the social security, the housing, and of course the Tennessee Valley Authority for power generation. So the man in charge of power has a whole lot of work to do as well. If we have electricity, we'll be able to have the small scale industries begin to spring up. People doing ordinary organizing, they will be able to actually, within seconds, because they have power, they have gas, they can change tires within five minutes.
The government of the day is looking at lifting 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years. So people have done the maths. It's 10 million people on a yearly basis if that target is to be achieved. From what you have heard them say, do you think that they have stated very clearly just how they intend to do this 10 million people out of poverty in a year, every year?
Well, I believe that will be the implementation stage. There is a goal, and they will work towards that goal. If the government is able to achieve or attain even 60% of that, that's a pass mark. But I can tell you, that there are so many departments of government looking towards serious employment. I know that ordinarily what NIMSE is about to do in terms of registering Nigerians, they've only done about around 40 million now out of about 200 million. And you see the need for us to know who we are. The need for you to be able to identify every Nigerian, wherever they may be. And of course, there is a partnership coming up, with the private sector. And I believe there is no way you want to set up registration centers in all local governments of the country. That will create some jobs. And of course, there are policies that we've been talking about. Shifts in terms of, we are talking of state policing. Just imagine if each state or the federation is allowed to be responsible for their own state police, and they're able to come with even minimum of, say, 20,000.
Let's not forget, there are questions as to how they're going to pay that, how they're going to pay those forces. This is also within the context of the federal government now trying to get back the over 600 billion naira in loan state. I think it was the first time in the early years of this government, sometime in 2015, in the early days, when states were given some bailout funds. Now the federal government is talking about recovering those funds. And people will be asking, what exactly would the states be getting at the end of the day by the time Federal Accounts Allocation Committee meeting is held? But, you're also looking at some of these indices that, we're looking at in terms of our poverty, in terms of health, in terms of employment and things of the sort. In what direction? You have talked about the economy. Would you say that you're hearing the right things, showing that in the area of the economy, which you think is our primary focus, there is a heavy focus on that to try and get Nigerians? We understand about 100 million Nigerians, about 50% of the population is living in poverty. Are you hearing the right things to get us out of there?
No, I'm not. Absolutely not. And then I'll explain to you what I mean. Now, you see, having to say things like, we want to lift 100 million people out of poverty, is a fantastic political statement. But then the work itself that you need to do to lift one person out of poverty, to lift 10 people out of poverty, to lift 100 people out of poverty has to be systematically designed for you to be able to achieve that. Now, what has the government been able to do? He mentioned something about agriculture, and I think that is a fantastic area for us to look at. But then, we shouldn't be talking about agriculture in terms of peasant farming. We're supposed to be talking about agriculture, a monster kind of agriculture, right? Then you talk about housing. If you build, in fact, in Kaduna, there are houses that I've been hearing about. I've been hearing advertisements about houses that governments recently built in town, and nobody is buying. Where's the purchasing power? And there's something that have to trigger the purchasing power, and that is the productivity that we're talking about. Being able to add value, being able to do something that does not exist, and then somebody else needs it. That you'll be able to create something, maybe be able to produce an agricultural produce, and then be able to process it, being able to get it to a finished product that people can pay for. These are the things that we should be looking at. If the government is looking at being able to, as a country, up to today, we're talking about 30 years of having to battle with fuel importation in the same country, and we're talking about all of these things that government has failed in areas the government has failed to address. You look at Ajakuta still that has the capacity to recruit a lot of people and also build companies. You mentioned something about SMEs. SMEs cannot just come up. SMEs feed on big industries, big factories, big companies that are producing something, that are doing something. If I'm able to produce tire, for instance, and if I might have to remind you that Dunlop, one of the tire companies that left Nigeria to Ghana. Michelin did the same thing, a couple of them. Now, if I can produce tire, I need somebody to take it from where I produce it to the man that needs it on the road. These are the areas that government have to focus on. We must understand that Nigeria, as we look at it, is not a country of 10 million people. It's not a country of 5 million people. It's not a country that we can compare to the likes of Singapore. We are looking at a country of 200 million people. So you cannot be looking at policies that you would say, okay, we can just somehow manage to. No, you have to come with bold policy plans that are going to create that kind of big bang policies.
Okay, just quickly now. We have seen, you talked about NIMSI and registration. It's sad that right now our population is still based on estimates.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic that NIMSI will, with this registration, perhaps will begin to have an idea of indeed how many Nigerians we are? You talk about 40 million people already registered, and if 200 million Nigerians is how many we are you optimistic that perhaps this will be through the backdoor way of getting Nigerians numbered?
I think that even from when I was running for office, we did some findings, and we noticed that we have over 180 million active mobile phones in Nigeria, mobile lines in Nigeria. So it means that even if everybody have maybe assume that each person have two lines or thereabouts, you're looking at close to 90 million people. Then some of the things that I see in the country are very interesting, because I see that we have data with banks, we have data with telecoms, we have data with quite a number of places, and we don't have an established national data center where we can say that all these data can be synchronized and everything in that place being secure for cities, for us to have every single citizen to register. So I think, yes, we might be able to get the information about that, but then that's really not the issue, because what I can see on the street of Kaduna where I live is that I have a number of young people who are roaming around the street. So you might say, they are not up to 10 million people on the street of Nigeria that are not in school, but I can tell you that I see a number of people on the street. Take those ones off the street for me. Do you get the point? Now, so if you say, we don't have the numbers, we don't know the exact numbers of the population of Nigeria, yes, fine. But we also, we can tell you that we have people on the street of this country that are unemployed. Take them off the street and get them jobs to do.
How do you see states collaborating here? Because yes, indeed, the task is for the ministers, but they will have to work in conjunction with the state governments, because the people, majority of the people live in the states. Yes, they have been appointed here in Abuja, they hold their meetings here in Abuja, but majority of people whom they are going to be working for live in the states. Do you see a collaboration? Do you see any network or any strings for collaboration between the federal government and the states?
I think that it's...
Sorry, let me
that is taken for granted, because most of the federal policies are designed in such a way that the governors have a way of participating. For the federal housing, when they are building houses, for the states, they still collaborate with the governors. The governors make available, land and all that. So they will always work together. If we are looking at power, of course, you just mentioned the issue of people in the newspapers today generating power, and the government is paying for it, but we don't have the transmission lines in place to move the power to the end users. Even when the transmission is now picking up, the distributors, that is the discos, they do not have the meters in the homes to be able to ensure that they are able to sell the power to the people that are supposed to buy them. Now, when we look at, my brother alluded to the fact that the housing issue, that the people probably cannot buy because they are built and nobody is buying them. Yes, if that problem is there, it does not deny the fact that we have shortage of houses in this country. Now, is the policy of getting the houses to the people is what we have to look at again. When you are trying to revive or revamp or grow an economy, it is not, that is when you have the public. You talk about public housing, that is government responsibility. And when government builds like that, they must find a way of ensuring that they get the people to live inside. If the money they are charging is too much, if you can't give it for free, well, then you must have such mortgages that will have almost zero interest for people to be able to pay over 30 years. And there are so many ways that to look at all these policies and aggregate them together. They must all work together.
Senator and Mr. Sado, we have to thank both of you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. We understand we have very limited time to have this discussion, but rest assured that it is certainly an ongoing one. We have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Daily. Matthias Babasado, former ADP presidential candidate, a member Institute for National Transformation, and Senator Ayo Arishe is also a former chairman, House Committee on Privatization, and a member of the All Progressives Congress. Sunrise Daily will be back in just a moment.
Senate Committee.
Oh, beg your pardon. Senate Committee on Privatization. Well, the program will be back in a moment to wrap up. In just a moment, please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at some of the comments that you've sent as a result of some of the matters we've highlighted here today. Well, this is the very first one from Taya Dechinji, who says, I just renewed my passport in July in Oshogbo, but the immigration officers are collecting money for photocopy of documents and taking photographs. Well, the thing is it immigration officers actually take photographs or photocopy? It depends on where you did the photocopy. Well, so if it's outside, is that supposed to be free?
Well, perhaps what he is saying is that, look, it happened within the confines of the office.
And it says immigration officers.
Apparently.
Well, so maybe they need to look into that as well.
Perhaps that's why the Comptroller General also apologized, the other time.
Okay, this next one is from Klitowski, I believe. Says, thank you, Sunrise Daily, for bringing Babandede to your program today. It was timely. I am glad that Nigerian immigration boss acknowledged the booklet scarcity and how they are working hard to get booklets available within days or weeks. He says he's not sure what he heard, or that he heard that clearly. But yeah, it was timely, and of course there's still a lot of questions that have come up. We do hope that in coming days they are resolved.
All right, this third one is from Isioma Chibolu. It says all nations have criminals. Reality is that they make a bigger deal with Nigeria because they see the dysfunction in the leadership of Nigeria, where no officials steal money with no reprisal. Elections are rigged and stolen brazenly, and you think nations will respect you? Well, I'm looking at all our responsibility.
Chris. He was talking about the U.S. Consulate's office. But thank you all for your comments. Just keep them coming through. I appreciate them. You call them what? Constructive ones.
Yeah.
Well, that's the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
I am Akide, my name.
And Maokpe Ogun Yusuf. Do have a lovely day.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.